thank you, Dr. Jacqueline, for giving me such an amazing opportunity to speak to your class. So just to give a brief background, as you can see from screen, my name is Othman Maganga. I currently work for Jaguar Land Rover as software and control technical specialist. So I'm looking after a team which are responsible for designing software for our different vehicle platform. I joined Jaguar Land Rover about 8 years ago. Prior to that, I was a lecturer at Covent University. I was teaching advanced control engineering for master students. I did there my my master degree and my PhD. So I stayed at Land Rover about almost 8 years ago, 8 years well. Yeah. So what I'll be speaking today. So today I'll be taking a journey, which probably is it's quite uncommon to know about that journey if you are at the university. So I'll be taking you a journey which we're going through, which is the product design roadmap from the concept phase to the production readiness. So basically, I want to give you an overview what it take from when you start with the concept based on your customer need or your stakeholder need till when you make the software ready for production. So I'll be touching some of the area which kind of link with your course, which you are doing on your course of C, I think 211. 211. Okay, so moving on. So today, I think because of the time, so I may not be able to cover everything I was intending to cover. But I think we can always arrange for a second session. But today I'll be covering, I'll give you a brief introduction. And in the introduction, I'll talk about the key aspect, which is the project management process. The project management process means what I'm trying to talk about here is the workflow which we follow or the how we manage the project. Once you establish that you want to have a project, how do we manage that project? And then I'll talk about automotive V-cycle and automotive A-spice. So ideally from the topic of the product design from concept phase till production, I'll be focusing around what we do in automotive. And then I'll move into system engineering. I'll talk about requirement elicitation. And after that, how do we go about requirement definitions and what tool are we using for requirement definitions? And then I'll talk about system architecture design. So probably these terminology may not be seems familiar to you, but don't worry, you'll get to understand then as we are moving on. After speaking about the system design, I'll move into software design, which is kind of a second stage once you have finished the system engineering. I'll talk about how we gather the software requirement, software architecture design, and how do we construct the detailed unit design. I will talk about how do we test, because once you've done the software, you need to test that software. And we have different stages of software testing. So we normally call software unit testing verification, which is verification and validation. And I will skip now this other key aspect, yeah, which is about the software integration and testing, qualification of the software test, because it's quite heavy. And then I'll move on to the certification and compliance matrix. So usually before you can sell your product, everything you design must go through some certification. So we have so many certification in automotive industry. I do believe other industries as well, they do have their certification as well. But some of their certification which we'll be touching on is emission certifications. I will touch about the UNEC 15556. These are for cyber and software updates, and the US 10 for electromagnetic compatibility. I'll skip about the software maintenance. I hope Chuck will give me another opportunity, another time to come and talk to you for the rest of the stuff. So Now, I'll talk about the project management aspects. So in automotive or not only in automotive, in different sector, there are two main methodology for project management. So one is called agile and another one is called waterfall. So basically all of this is depending on how you are executing the project. So that's the only difference. So agile. So agile at the moment we do follow agile. So agile basically what you do is you break down your task into small manageable tasks and you arrange them into sprint and basically this process basically is a customer focused process. So what you do is you run a sprints. Those sprints usually is 1 up to 4 weeks, and in those sprint, basically of 1 to 4 weeks, you normally do the planning, you do the implementation, and you do the review and do retrospective. So retrospective is to see what went well and what didn't go well, what can be improved, and then you do the improvement. So the idea is you will have squads, and we call agile squads, and those agile squads will be made of the product owner, scrum master, and product members or squad members. And the idea is they will be meeting in sprint planning in daily basis, actually per week if it's 1 week sprint, or every 2 weeks to plan their sprint. But they will be having a daily sync up for usually 15 to 30 minutes to disagree what they'll be doing on that given day. Yeah, that's a sprint sync up or they do the sync up of the sprint. And traditionally, majority of the company they run this sprint into 2 weeks. Yeah, one is usually not enough. 2 weeks is kind of an average, and they have this what we call sync up, which we call it daily scrum. Yeah, so the idea is to have a continuous feedback where that you do the development in small chunk and you continue as a feedback. And if you have your stakeholder or customer, you keep getting the feedback from your customer. On the other hand, the waterfall is a linear or sequential approach which focus mainly on planning and execution. So everything is planning up front, where you say that, okay, you get all your requirement you need, you analyze those requirements, and once you analyze the requirement, you go to the design, and then after that, you go to the implementation, testing, delivery, and then you do the maintenance. So it's kind of a sequential. All these plus, you cannot start the analysis until you have finished the requirement. You cannot start the design until you have done the analysis. So and so on and so on. So it's kind of a sequential. Whereas in Agile, you can do all of these in one sprint, except that in that given sprint, you'll be taking fewer requirements, working on that. You'll have a couple of engineers that are working on the requirement. And in parallel, some of them, they are doing analysis, some of them, they are doing design, and so on. Yeah. And which means you'll have a small chunk of development in every week, which means you'll be able, because the problem if you do the waterfall, you may gather all the requirement in first year, and then by the time you give your product to the customer in next 3 to 4 years, customer has already changed their mind. But by following agile, you continuously talk to your customer or your stakeholder, which means the customer and yourself will be in sync or in alignment, whichever the customer wants you try to meet. So which that's the advantage of agile. They are also prone of agile as well. Yeah. Again, so these, as I said early, they are widely used not only on automotive, but they're also used in other sectors. For example, in Agile, they are widely used for software development, not necessarily in automotive. You could see like a software development team, they normally use that for IT, marketing, finance, banking, telecoms, and so on. On the other hand, the waterfall methodology used for construction and mainly for the aerospace and defense. The main reason for the aerospace and defense, just to touch on this one, is the fact that the waterfall or the automotive the defense and aerospace, usually they are design and development take longer, and testing take quite longer. They do heavy testing, so which means it's better for them to go in a sequential rather than doing it fast. This is for faster product development, and in defense and automotive and aerospace, basically you want to do testing. So because the safety is the heart of their design. So that's are the methodologies for project management. So the two terms I'm introducing to you is agile and waterfall. Yeah, and moving on now, specific for automotive, we normally follow something called V cycle and also automotive SPICE, or sometimes they call it A SPICE. So what is V-cycle? So V-cycle is a structured approach, which basically is used for development, validation, and integration of complex systems. So in automotive, basically, what we're doing is called complex system. You have multiple teams. They are working in a different aspect of the vehicle. You may have some team working on let's say, body side of the vehicle. You may have some team working on the engine side. You may have some team working on climate side or the HVAC. Some team also working on, let's say, on chassis, and you have some team working on, like myself, working on the charging system of the vehicle, and another team may be working on the powertrain. So there are multiple issues within the vehicles. So it's a very complex system. So on that case, the automotive came up with the structure, which is called the V cycle, which basically to give a structured approach on how you do things. So the first step you normally do is the requirement elicitation, and I'll touch in detail what it is, and then you go through requirement analysis, or we sometimes call it high-level system requirements. And once you have finished that, you move into the system architecture design. So we will be traveling across the V. So basically this, just to give you a quick understanding, that requirement is elicitation is basically trying to understand what your stakeholder needs. And then system qualification test is to verify that you have designed a system which meet your requirement or your customer needs or your stakeholder needs. That's the idea. Yeah, so you have a system engineering side and you have a software engineering side. So we'll be traveling one by one until the end of the session. So that's the V cycle. Basically, like I said, is to give a structured approach for development of the product and validation and integration. Yeah, moving on. Now, as you can see, this V cycle really, it doesn't give you about the quality, about the supporting process and so on. So now there is this something called automotive software process improvement capability and determination, or ASPICE. So now this is a framework basically it's been designed specific to improve the development process in automotive industry. So it's specific for automotive industry to improve the process. So it come up with 3 different stages. So it come up with a primary life cycle process. So this is the heart of the primary life cycle. And then you have additional processes. So for example, not everything your company or the OEM, like ourselves, that you may be doing in-house. You may be outsourcing certain things from the supplier. So you need to have kind of process on how you design your contracts, how you monitor your supplier. So how do you know that the software or the hardware which you are received from the supplier is meeting your standards? So you need to have supporting process to ensure that there are certain metrics you check up to make sure that your supplier meet those standards. You need to have guidelines about the technical requirements, legal and administrative requirement, and also the project management requirements, yeah, and protocol and so on. Yeah, how do you do the tender? Yeah, how do you do the tender? So the tender in terms like before you choose the supplier, you need to go through something called RFQ. And that RFQ, basically, you may have multiple supply. How do you select them? So you need to have some supporting processes and the process on how you release the product. So that's why we call this is the primary life cycle process. Yeah. So the engineers will be following this, where the other side of the business also will be following that part here. So you also have supporting life cycle processes. So the supporting life cycle processes is like, just think of, just to give an example, let's say you have released the software or you have released the feature to the customer, and that feature to the customer could be something related to maybe heated seat, and then I'll show later on the heated seat. And then after that, you find that that feature may need some enhancement. So you need to have change process mechanism in place to help you to be able to update your software. And not only that, even when you are doing regular changes into your software, into the hardware, you need to have some change request management. So these are supporting processes on how you do the reviews, how you do the the quality assurance and configuration management. Yeah. So these are the supporting processes as well as a part of the ASPICE. Yeah. Now, there's organizational life cycle processes. So this is related to the risk management. How do you manage your risk? Yeah, and how do you do your project management along those agile and waterfall, depending on which process you follow, and how you do the process improvement. So now you can see that this center part here is the standard V cycle. As you can see, it's a V cycle, which was originally for the dedicated for automotive. And then the combined of all these stuff you see around here, that's what is making you the A-Spice. So the main objective really of the A-Spice is to improve the process, yeah, through all these multiple stuff of the risk management, change control management, also to ensure that the quality is being met, the quality assurance, and also supply assessment. So you need to have something, we call it, for example, for software, we have something called software scorecard. So the software scorecard need to have the metrics to ensure that wherever the supplier is following in the internal development of the software or hardware needs certain criteria. So, so now that is the an introduction. Just to recap, so what I've done is I've taken you through the how do we manage the project, which process we follow. So I mentioned about agile, and then I mentioned about the waterfall. Just a keyword to remember there that waterfall is an iterative approach where you manage your work in small chunks and you do based on the sprint. So that is agile, sorry, and waterfall you follow in a sequential manner. And then I talk about the automotive V cycle, focusing from the system engineering design process all the way to the software, and I touch about the ASPICE, which come up with an additional process around it. So now I'm moving on to the requirement elicitation. So what is a requirement elicitation? So basically, again, this is the systematic approach which basically we use for identifying, gathering, and analyzing some requirements from our stakeholders and document those information, yeah, in order to define what we want to achieve on that project and what are the constraints. Yeah, so that's the key um, uh, part of the requirement is elicitation. So is to identify and gather requirement, analyzing those, and set up some constraint and on that given project. Yeah. So what do we need to do? Basically, during the requirement elicitation, basically we're trying to engage to understand what's the need of our stakeholders. So our stakeholders basically is our customer. What do they need? What do they expect from us? And what is the desired outcome? So I just give you an example here. You can see this picture. So this picture I take, I think it was 2 days ago. It was snowing outside. It was heavy snow. So just imagine for this case, but in this case is a complete product, so that is already in a vehicle. But just imagine you have a car like this. You may have like maybe the cabin is not comfort because the temperature can drop down all the way to minus. So our customer, they are quite demanding, so which we need to meet our customer, and because it's the center of our design and everything. So which means the customer may expect to have an improved cabin comfort, especially during cold weather. Or it could be during hot weather, you may need to do the opposite in terms of the how you maintain your cabin conditions. So in this case, the customer may say that I needed heated seat and cooled seat. So which means like if I go to the vehicle, turn on the vehicle, I should have a feature which will allow me to turn on my heating on the seat I'm sitting so that I can get warm for the extreme cold conditions. So which means that the expectation from the customer point of view is improved cabin comfort. Um, and the need is the heated seat. So you can see that there is a need, which is the heated seat to cool their seat. And what is expectation based on the need is an improved cabin comfort. Yeah. Moving on. So you can see here, if I hope you can hear the voice.
Dr. Othman, we cannot hear. Can you increase the volume maybe?
Okay. Yeah, so that's the maximum. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so let me pause. So what I've done is from that recording, I can lower the voice and I'll try to explain. Um, so what I've done is I'm just showcasing the HMI. So this is the HMI of the vehicle. So in the HMI of the vehicle, so you have a place where you can alter the temperature. So you can see here, this is the temperature setting, which is 25 degrees C. But through the same button, I can select my seat. So this is the passenger seat. I can turn on the passenger seat, and then I can change the level of the heating. So I can move from low, medium to high. That's from the passenger side, and I can move to the driver side. I could repeat and do the same. So you can see that this, we call it, is kind of a different zone control, where a four zone control, like, and the passenger and driver, they can control their own heating system independently. So this is the final product. I started here to show the final product, but you need to think of in the case that this product didn't exist. Now this will be the requirements where the customer say, oh, I need to have a mechanism to heat or cool my seat so that I'll be more comfortable on the vehicle. So during the requirement elicitation phase, that's what you'll be gathering in terms of the meeting up with your stakeholders, what they need, what is the expectation, and what is the desired outcome. So I've went directly to the expectation, which was to improve the cabin comfort. The need was to have heated seat, and the desired outcome is what I'm showing here in the video. As you can see now, we have a feature which allow customer to increase their temperature of the seat. So this is a heated seat, and they could also do the opposite of cooling them, depending on the climate conditions. Yeah, the customer need could be, for example, the gesture tailgates. So they say like, okay, I come out from shopping, and then I approaching my vehicle. I don't want to touch the boot. So by using my leg, there is a sensor located here. I can shake my leg or around that sensor, and the boot should be able to open. Or you could have a four-zone climate control, which means that the driver and the passenger, they can control their own temperature. This is no heated seat. In this case, it's the temperature of their area independently. Also, the backside seat, they can control, again, their temperature independently. You may also have, like, when you are traveling, you may want to charge your phone. As you know, now we are in the term of the social media. You want to always be connected. You want to check weather, you want to check, talk to your friends and all of that while you're driving. So you may want to charge your phone, and we are using navigation from the phones as well through Google Map. And so which means the customer may say, like, I want to be connected all the time when I'm in the vehicle. So which means from the hardware point of view, when we are gathering these requirements and understanding the customer needs, which is the connectivity, then we will be saying, okay, in that case, how many charging port you need, what type of the charging port you need, because you need to have to connect multiple, not only iPhones, maybe you may need to connect Samsung, and so on and so on. Yeah, so those are the during the requirement elicitation phase. Yeah, the key things to remember is the need of the customer, expectation, and the desired outcome, following the systematic approach on how you gather those requirements and so on. So there are techniques on how we elicitate the requirements. So what are these techniques? So the first technique is through survey and questionnaire and interviews. So you can imagine this is the early phase where you need to, from the business perspective, you need to see, like, okay, what are my stakeholders or what are my customer needs? Yeah. So if you think on that bigger picture, so which means that the business and marketing team, or through surveys, through interview, they will be gathering the information to see, okay, what is our customer demanding? Yeah. So in this case, for example, we may say, yeah, we may want to have heated seat, yeah, if that was not existing. Yeah, and so that's the first technique, which is the survey, questionnaire, and interviews. And then we have also requirement workshops. So this requirement workshop, again, it could involve a lot of people, but the idea of the requirement workshop is, again, is a collaborative section between stakeholders, which is our customer, and some business analysts. So the business team in the marketing, so they will meet up with these stakeholders and work together to define and validate and prioritize requirement for a project or product. Yeah. So during that phase. So during the how do we conduct these requirement workshops? So it could be through brainstorming. So which means the stakeholders and the business analysts, they will meet up and do brainstorming. Also, it could be an internal, because not everything is driven from outside. It could be internal teams where they say, like, okay, I think it would be nice to have this feature because we have done some survey on the market. There is a certain, maybe our competitor doing similar stuff. So I think it would be nice to have in our customer, and so on. So that's through brainstorming. And also you have through focus group. You may do that using use case analysis and user stories, which means user story could be, again, you meet with the customer, which maybe they use a particular feature, maybe they need some enhancement on that feature, and they give you some feedback, and you do some use case analysis as well. And during these requirement workshop, again, you could define the interface, you do some interface analysis, and also you could do mind mapping. You could also do the process modeling. Now, so that's the key aspect of the requirement workshop, which is one of the methodology of the requirement elicitation. Another type of requirement elicitation is through prototype. So what you may do quickly prototype what is your stakeholder need. And then you prototype and you see, okay, yeah, that is achievable and we can meet that. And also it could be some document analysis. Yeah. So the customer or the stakeholder may supply some documents, and then you could analyze document with a continuous feedback. So these are some of the techniques we use during requirement elicitation. So moving on,